Imagine for a second that you're standing in the middle of a quiet desert town. Suddenly, the ground beneath your feet starts to tremble. In the distance, a massive cloud of dust rises, and out of that dust comes an army like nothing the world has ever seen. We're talking about 60,000 soldiers, horses, and most terrifying of all, giant war elephants, tall as houses, draped in armor. This army isn't here to talk, they're here to erase a sacred building from the face of the earth. This isn't a movie plot, this is the real-life story of the Year of the Elephant, how birds destroyed an army. To understand why this happened, we have to go back to the year 570 CE. This was a time long before the world knew the name of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. At that time, Yemen was ruled by a man named Abraha. Now, Abraha wasn't just a regular governor, he was ambitious. He saw that every year, people from all over Arabia would travel hundreds of miles to a small, cube-shaped building in Mecca, the Kaaba. Abraha didn't like this. He wanted that power and that money for himself, so he decided to build something better. He built a cathedral in Yemen called al-Fil. He poured gold, marble, and the finest craftsmanship into it. He wanted it to be so beautiful that people would forget Mecca and come to Yemen instead. But here's the thing, you can't just replace something that was built by the prophets Ibrahim and Ishmael. The people stayed loyal to the Kaaba. One day, an Arab man, frustrated by Abraha's arrogance, actually snuck into this grand cathedral and defiled it. When Abraha found out, he didn't just get angry, he exploded. He swore that he wouldn't just punish the man, he would march to Mecca and crush the Kaaba into dust. This leads us into what history remembers as the miracle of Surah al-Fil. Abraha gathered 60,000 soldiers. He brought 13 massive elephants, led by a giant named Mahmud. As they marched through the desert, tribes tried to stop them. A leader named Du-Nafar gathered his people to fight. But how do you fight a wall of elephants with just swords and spears? They were crushed. Abraha's message was clear. Nothing could stand in his way. When the army reached the outskirts of Mecca, Abraha's soldiers began raiding the area. They seized property, livestock, and camels. Among those camels were 200 that belonged to Abdul Muttalib, the leader of Mecca and the grandfather of our prophet. Abraha sent a messenger into the city. He said, "I haven't come to fight you unless you try to stop me from destroying this house. If you don't fight, your lives are safe." Abdul Muttalib was a man of great dignity. He went to Abraha's camp to speak with him. When he walked into the tent, Abraha was actually impressed. Abdul Muttalib looked like a king. Through a translator, Abraha asked, "What do you want?" Everyone expected Abdul Muttalib to beg for the Kaaba, but instead he said, "I want my 200 camels back." Abraha laughed in his face. He said, "When I saw you, I respected you. But now, I've come to destroy your most sacred site, the home of your religion, and you're worried about a few camels?" Abdul Muttalib looked him in the eye and said words that still echo through time. He said, "I am the Lord of the camels, but the Kaaba, it has its own Lord, and he will protect it." Abraha, blinded by his own pride, gave the camels back and prepared for the final attack. Abdul Muttalib returned to the people of Mecca. He knew they couldn't win a physical war. He told everyone to take their families and flee to the mountains. He told them to leave the city empty. As the people left, Abdul Muttalib stood by the door of the Kaaba, held the iron ring, and prayed to Allah to protect his house. Then he too went into the mountains to watch. The next morning, the desert was silent. Abraha gave the order to march. The army moved, but the great elephant, Mahmud, didn't. He just sat down. They prodded him with iron bars. They beat him. They tried everything. When they turned Mahmud back toward Yemen, he would stand up and run. When they pointed him towards Syria or the east, he would move. But the moment they pointed his head towards the Kaaba, he would drop to his knees and refuse to move an inch. While they were struggling with the elephant, the sky began to change. It didn't turn gray with rain clouds, it turned pitch black with birds. Thousands upon thousands of birds, known as the Ababil, came from the direction of the sea. They swarmed over the army like a dark cloud. Each bird was carrying 3 small stones, one in its beak and one in each claw. These weren't just any stones, they were Sijjil, stones of baked clay sent specifically by Allah. The birds began to drop them. Now, you might think, how can a small stone hurt an armored soldier? But these weren't normal physical laws. When a stone hit a soldier, it didn't just bounce off. It went through his helmet, through his body, and through his horse. It was like a rain of fire from the sky. The army that looked invincible just minutes ago was now in a state of total chaos. Men were screaming, elephants were panicking and trampling their own soldiers, and the ground was covered in the remains of the proudest army Arabia had ever seen. The Quran describes them as looking like eaten straw, chewed up, destroyed, and tossed aside. Abraha himself didn't die right away. He was hit, and his body began to literally fall apart as his remaining men carried him back toward Yemen. He lived just long enough to reach home and see his empire crumble before he finally died a miserable death. He wanted to be remembered as the man who destroyed the Kaaba, but he is only remembered as the man who was humiliated by the smallest of creatures. But why did this happen then? Why that year? Just 50 days after this miracle, a baby was born in that very city of Mecca, a baby named Muhammad. Allah protected Mecca because it was destined to be the birthplace of the final revelation. If Abraha had succeeded, Mecca would have been a ruin, the people would have been scattered, and history would have been different. This miracle was a sign to the world that something big was coming. It was a clear message: do not touch this house. This story teaches us that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, they are nothing compared to the power of the Creator. Abraha had the soldiers, the weapons, and the elephants. The people of Mecca had nothing but their faith. In the end, the weak were saved and the mighty were destroyed. If you found this story powerful and want to learn more about the amazing history of our faith, please show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps share these stories with more people around the world. Thank you for watching, and keep your hearts firm in the truth. This has been a production by True Seerah.